In today's video, I'm going to talk about League of Legends top lane strategy, little things that are going to help you win more games, play smarter, and just in general be a better teammate. It's very important to start analyzing champion matchups early on in your learning process because there are so many champion matchups. If you don't know if your champion is strong level 1, level 2, level 3 against your opponent, you're oftentimes just going to lose the whole game off that. Those levels are the most important, and if you're playing an early game powerhouse champion, you need to be abusing it. And if you're playing a weaker champion that scales into late, you need to be playing very safe. So start practicing now. You can 1v1. This is what a lot of people call like limit testing, where just go all in the opponent 5, 6, 7 different ways until you know, hey, I really can't beat this person. They're playing better than me. I need to start playing safer. And then you can do that with every champion matchup that you run into. It takes a lot of time to learn this skill, but it's one of the most important skills to learning early game. Let's talk about gold efficiency and what items to buy in the early game. The items you should be trying to buy in the early game is level 1 boots, ruby crystal, longsword. They're the best, they scale the best. Things like cloth armor doesn't scale very well because you already have really high base armor, and HP just scales so much better with your base armors. Longsword is really good because it helps you CS, which helps you build more of a gold lead, and movement speed is really good because it helps you get back to lane, it helps you dodge ganks, and it helps you dodge skill shots in lane and take better trades, etc. So those are the items you should be building early. You should build the components, those parts first, and then you should build the other parts later. Things like Null Magic Mantle or Cloth Armor or Crit Cloak. Those should come later in the build once you already have the stronger item components to start with. The game starts in Champ Select. I see a lot of players make the mistake of kind of assuming that the game starts at like the 1 minute 30 second mark. But in Champ Select, you should be looking at your opponents, their picks. You should be trying to get last pick as top lane. And you should, if you have a diverse champion pool, you should be trying to pick a champion that synergizes with your team. If you don't have a diverse champion pool, you should be showing your allies what champion you plan on picking. So if you are a Garen main, you only play Garen, show them that you're going to play Garen so that they can make their choices appropriately. And then also look at the enemy team comp and think to yourself, okay, these are the types of things that they're going to try to do. These are the types of things I should plan on. So a really good example of that would be if the enemy team has a Blitzcrank, tell your team. And I know it's dumb, but I bet that will raise your win rate. You just say, hey, the enemy team has a Blitzcrank. We need to play safe level 1, right? Like, then when you hop into the game, start to ping it. Say, enemy Blitzcrank alive. Walk into lane, protect your jungle, ward it, that kind of stuff. And if that all goes smoothly, you are at a much higher chance to win the game just because you survived the jungle invade, right? A lot of people just kind of ignore or play lazy or go AFK right at the start of the game. And that the start of the game is the most important part of the game. It is how your jungler gets started, how they snowball, people get set up in lanes, they cheese you. All of that stuff starts in the first 2 minutes. So you really need to be active, thinking about, okay, what room build do I want to go? What summoner spells do I want to go? What champion do I want to go in champion select? You need to be thinking about all of those things early. And when you see their jungler, when you see their top laner, you need to be thinking to yourself, okay, do I win this 1v1? Do I survive a jungle gank? Do I win a 2v2 with my jungler? And you need to be thinking that well before it happens. You shouldn't be thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't realize they had a Kha'Zix on their team. Like, that shouldn't be a surprise to you. You should have known that before the game started. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I see new players doing, is they just don't look at the whole grand picture. They're just looking at their 1v1 in champion select. It's a big mistake. You can get a huge advantage by playing around as a team and your synergies with your team rather than just looking at the 1v1 in your lane. Let's talk about power spikes. Power spikes would be when you hit a power point that's going to put you well ahead of the opponent. Not something where it's like, well, I'm a little bit stronger than them now because I went and got another 150 HP. What I'm talking about is something like you go and pick up Ninja Tabby. Ninja Tabby makes you move faster, it gives you armor, it gives you decreased physical damage taken. It is just overall going to put you in a point where you're much stronger than your opponent, especially if they have not bought. Another example of a power spike would be you hit level 6, your opponent's playing something like Shen. Shen's level 6 teleports him across the map and shields some other ally. He's not going to want to use that in lane with you, right? That sets him behind. So he's going to sit there and not even use it when he gets level 6. He's going to be trying to farm and fight you in lane most of the game. So when you get your level 6, you are much stronger than Shen because you got that level 6. So that's going to set you way ahead. Another big spot is when you get your first item completed. If your first item is a really, really strong trading item, like say Eclipse, you are going to suddenly start crushing your opponent in these short trades, and you need to think, what am I trying to do now that I got my first item, or what do I need to worry about now that they got their first item or their power spike? And so you should be thinking about the relative strength of your opponent throughout the whole laning phase. It's not this static thing where, oh, I just killed them, they're going to teleport back to lane, I'm full life, I should be able to kill them again. Well, the problem is if they finish their item while they're dead, they come back and you haven't bought and you maybe have 2,000 gold in the bank, you're going to get crushed when they come back, even if you were ahead before they left. So you need to be thinking constantly, where's my gold? Where's their gold? How's my XP doing? How's my HP doing? What level spikes are coming up? And you just need to be thinking about it throughout the game. This also includes your jungle. So if the enemy jungle is playing something like Fiddlesticks, you need to worry about him hitting level 6, popping over the wall and killing you. If your jungler is somebody like Nocturne, you need to think, oh, if I let the enemy push in to my tower, Nocturne can easily come up and gank for me. That would be wonderful. Or you can think about possibly diving under the enemy tower as well. So you need to be thinking about these things throughout the game in order to use an advantage, use a power spike advantage to win the game. Alright, next I wanted to talk about vision control. So vision control really is the idea or concept that top lane is going to try to protect their top lane's jungle, their topside jungle, as well as invade the enemy topside's jungle. And you can do this with vision wards, control wards. You can do it just by clearing out the enemy's control wards. You can also do it by just stopping the enemy top laner from leaving lane and being able to actually go do those actions, go ward or clear wards or invade your enemy top laner. So there's lots of ways you can deny that information. Usually top laners are not the information gatherers of the team. They're oftentimes trying to stay in lane the full time, duking it out with the enemy top laner, collecting all their XP and gold. That's their main role. But if you get a lead early, you can recall, go get a control ward, place it in your tribe rush, and that will allow your jungler to have a lot more confidence coming up and ganking your lane, knowing that there's not a ward there. Or you can go deep into the enemy's jungle, place the control ward there, and then if they come up and try to gank you, that will either protect you or protect the topside void grubs. So very, very powerful to get ward control. Ward control is the denial of enemies' information while gaining information from your team. So this is a core fundamental of the game, is when you have vision, you are in a much stronger position. When you know where the enemy is, just by seeing the enemy top laner, that can allow your bot lane to win lane, that can allow your mid lane to roam. Because a lot of mid lanes, they don't want to go roam in case the jungler's just there waiting for them and they run into a 2v1. So if you know the enemy jungler is at top, that can allow, it can ease the pressure for all your other lanes, and suddenly you can be in a very advantageous spot from just one ward, right? So recall, spend your money. When you have an extra 75 gold, definitely pick up that ward. That ward is almost as good as a kill or almost as good as an assist. It's just in that realm of, well, this can help me take my game to the next level. You need to be buying several red wards per game. not one, buy 2 or 3 or 4, and place them down before the last one's even gone away. So you don't have to wait till the enemy comes and clears your rev ward. You can go ahead and place a new one where you need it when you need it. And I wanted to talk about something important about warding here. So the most dangerous part of the laning phase is when you're going and placing your ward. So when you walk to Tribrush, there could just be an enemy jungler in there. And if they're there and you place the ward and you see them for the first time, one, they might just kill the ward instantly. That's maybe best scenario. Or 2, when you place the ward, they come out of the bush, the enemy top laner comes down and they're 2v1ing you outside of lane. So you don't have the advantage of the minions. You're not close to your tower. So you're really, really far away, and oftentimes this results in deaths. And players don't really think, okay, I need to place this ward when I'm safe. That's the number one thing, is you need to see the enemy jungler when you go place your ward for the first time. You can't be doing it like, oh, this is really dangerous for me. I've pushed up way too far. Now's when I'm going to go place the ward. Because that's just going to result in the jungler's already there. In many, many, many of your games, the jungler will already be there when you realize you need to go out and ward. So you need to do it well in advance, not like 3 minutes in advance, but, you know, a wave or 2 in advance. Go place it out there, or plan on when you want to place that ward. You don't want to be placing the ward when the enemy top laner is not busy. So if you can crash it the whole wave into the tower, they'll be busy up there fighting the minions, then you can go place the ward, come back, and start farming again in lane. And that's part of my next point, which is once you've got that vision, it allows you to start making really aggressive plays. Now you can put constant pressure on your enemy. Now you can ask for jungle ganks, jungle pressure, and get tower dives on your opponent and just put them in a really, really bad spot. What you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be clearing 6 minions, letting the other 6 push into the enemy and letting them clear the 6 minions back, and you're just kind of trading minions back and forth. Now, that might work if you're playing something like Kale with really, really good late game scaling, but if you're not playing something like Kale, you don't want to be doing that. If you get the lead early, you need to be pushing that advantage to get you a bigger lead. So you need to be going and warding, go into the enemy jungle, try to kill the jungler at the red, or go and try to take their Gromp or their Krugs, and then come back to the lane and farm the lane again. And oftentimes what you'll see is the enemy top laner will have just kind of casually walked into lane now because you're gone. And maybe you can come in and gank your own lane in a spot that normally they'd be waiting by their tower. So now they're trying to farm the minions up at the midpoint of the wave, and you can just crush them. Then if you get them low enough from that gank, you can push the waves. Now you can dive them under the turret and take the turret. And so these are the kinds of things that you need to start doing with your lead. What you shouldn't be doing is just crushing the minions over and over and over. Something I want to instill in you guys is that a lot of these top lane matchups have very specific mechanics in how you need to win and how you need to play them, because a lot of the champions are not weak except for one mechanic, right? So something like Aatrox is way less strong if you build hill cut. Warwick is way less strong if you build hill cut and you play safe till mid game, right? Things like Darius is really good against tanky champions, and he has a lot of trouble with people that all in him and flash his heal, right? So if you can all in him and kill him within 10 seconds, he's usually not very strong. So the idea is that you need to learn each one of these top lane champions and really how they play. It's not very similar to something like bot lane, where bot lane, a lot of the AD carries kind of do the same thing. They do a damage, they build some items, they do more damage. And yeah, Jinx has got a little bit longer range, and Caitlyn's got some little tricks up her sleeve to do the headshots mechanic. But really, they're all just trying to attack you. Whereas a champion like Darius is actually really strong underneath your tower. He really likes to dive you under the tower when you're low. Same thing with Renekton. Whereas a champion like Malphite likes to do the opposite. He likes to bait you under his tower and then he can stun you and knock you up and slow you while you're down there. And when you're trading auto attacks, well, your auto attacks are even slower, so he's playing this game there too. So learning all of the different matchups in top lane can be very difficult. One of the hardest parts about top lane is that as you start to get better, more and more and more different top lanes start to get played. So you start to see things like Karma top and LeBlanc top and Akali top and Kennen top and Gnar top. And when you're first playing, you're really going to see a lot of the bruisers and tanks. You're going to see Malphite, Ornn, you're going to see Garen, Darius, and Aatrox, right? Like you're going to see the same 5 or 6 split pushers like Nasus, Yorick, Tryndamere, right? But as you get better and better at top, you just start to see a ton of champions, and it gets really, really hard. You have to learn all of their different little cheese mechanics. And what I suggest is don't get caught up in the counterpick meta. One of the most common things I see as you're climbing is you see these people that are picking champions that do really well against Aatrox or really well against Garen. And when you're playing Garen or Aatrox, you get a little worried because they're, they smash you in the early game. But as you go towards late game, you realize they don't know how to play their champion. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to combo because they're playing the champion for the first time or second time or 10th time, and you're playing a character you've played 300 or 400 games of. And that's really where you're going to see that high level mastery, is when you're playing the same character over and over and over. And you should try to build a champion pool out that maybe has 4 characters or 5 characters, rather than having 12 characters you're playing and you say, oh, I'm comfortable picking into Fizz top. I know I got this really cool set build. And then, oh, I'm comfortable playing into LeBlanc. I've got this really, really cool Renekton build. And you should try to stick to a couple champions, and it might not be the most efficient champion, but if you play 1 or 2 bruisers, that's probably enough bruisers to play, right? Like if they pick something that's bad into any of the bruisers, stay on one of those bruisers. Don't go to the best bruiser for the situation. Just play what you're most comfortable with. Same thing kind of goes for just roles in general. You shouldn't be hopping from bruiser to tank one game, and from tank to ranged AD carry one game, and from ranged AD carry to a specialty hero like Singed the next game. You should be sticking to what you know pretty well. And if you need to make a hop, do a hop from a tank to bruiser or bruiser back to tank, and really stick to a couple roles until you've really mastered them. I see a lot of people playing things like Riven, Teemo, Jace, and those characters are all great, but they are all very different from playing something like Darius, and you need to really have a different mentality when you go into the game and have a plan on where am I going to get sustained from? Do I need sustain this game? Am I going to try to all in or poke? Whereas Darius and Renekton kind of just do the same kinds of things. They like to push out their wave, wait for it to push back to them, and then they like to do things like dive towers and all in. So that's my advice on picking characters, is you want to stick to a couple roles, a couple types of champion, and put in a lot of time learning all of the champions that you're seeing. I like to focus on the first 10 most popularly picked champions first, and then branch out to the other specialty heroes that are like annoying counterpicks to my favorite heroes, like Singed, if Singed is really popular, or something like Teemo is really popular as a counterpick. Then I like to learn those characters as well so that I can play well against them. Let's talk about shutdowns. So shutdowns is a mechanic where you get ahead, and if you die, you give a big amount of gold to your opponent, more than a regular kill. So you want to try to protect your shutdown gold. You don't want to be dying. You don't want to be split pushing way too far into a 4v1 and just dying for free. See that way too commonly, as people will be way ahead and they'll give away their shutdown gold for free. Don't do that. Stop doing it. You need to be warding. You need to be playing safer. Don't push when you don't have pressure on the map. Just play smarter. It's boring. Sorry. You got to do it. Okay, second thing on that same note is, let's say you get a lead. Well, when you're ahead, oftentimes you want to build like one defensive item. That one defensive item is going to allow you to have just enough durability that enemies don't want to focus you during team fights and, you know, try to collect that shutdown. So it's not always perfect, but if you go full damage, what oftentimes happens is if they coordinate their CCs on you, you just die. Even though you are ahead, you can't get much done. So oftentimes when you have that shutdown, it's better to start building a little bit of defense stats, and that way you can even snowball harder. All right, let's talk about losing gracefully. So oftentimes what happens is you walk into lane, maybe you get ganked, maybe you just have a really bad trade, and your lane's just lost, okay? If you died, what you want to do is you need to convert your build from whatever the standard is, and the standard might be like, say, Trinity Force. You might want to go from Trinity Force to something like Sunfire Cape and build really, really defensive and tanky, and just hope that towards the mid and end game, your team has someone fed enough that they can just carry you. That's way, way, way better to do than to go the standard build where you're trying to 1v1 the top laner, right? Like if you're down 40 or 50 CS, you're down 2 kills, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to 1v1 the top laner at any point during the game. It might be possible that you can come back, but probably not. You probably need to start playing with your team and focusing on making plays around that so that they can carry you and you can win the game. Or you can do the opposite, which is kind of the more risky reward style, which is you can go full damage, go crazy into damage, go, you know, ignore all defensive stats. You're just trying to kill your opponent. And if you go full burst build, maybe you combo your opponent perfectly. If you're playing an outplay skill champ like Irelia or Fiora, maybe you get the perfect stun and you can come back and kill them. So those are your two options. You want to build more tanky, or you want to build less tanky. You want to go away from the standard. The standard is oftentimes kind of a middle ground where you say, well, this is particularly good when we're even. That's not really how you want to play when you get crushed. You need to go all in on a strategy when you're getting crushed. And let's just talk about the mentality that you should have when you see your bot lane losing, when you see your mid lane losing, when you see your jungler losing. How should you play top? Well, you don't want to play conservatively anymore. Like, it depends on how hard your other lanes are losing, right? Like if they're all down 1 kill and you're down 1 kill, maybe it's okay that you just play safe, because maybe you can come back at the next big team fight. But if your bot lane's like 1-6 and your mid lane's like 2-5, at that point you know, okay, we gotta fix this somehow. And oftentimes the best way to fix that is to just start taking all-ins on your opponent. Just try to outplay them and see if you can do it. Because if you just play safe, you're gonna lose anyways. But if you go crazy, you go all in, maybe you make the perfect play, you get a kill, you get all the minions, they teleport back, you kill them again, then maybe you can come back in that game. You can go crush the mid laner, get a shutdown, and suddenly you're back in the whole game as a team. So you need to be starting to take these really wild risks if you're really far behind, and you should play a lot safer and conservatively if you're even. Don't be going and diving your opponent under the tower when you have an AD carry that's 6-1. Because on the opposite side of that, how should you be playing when your team's really far ahead, but you're just like 0-1 or 1-1 in lane? Well, you should start to play more conservatively and play safe and start to ward and start to talk to your team about, hey, go take those objectives, and you should become like a team leader. You should go down bottom lane, split push, force the enemy top laner to come deal with you while your team goes and takes Baron, right? So I see this mistake all the time from players as they see their allies getting really fed, and it kind of goes to their head where they say, oh, my AD carries 6-1, watch them, he just two-shot my lane, well, let's just dive this guy. And it's like, no, we want to win this game. You need to play safe and play smart, and as a team we can win these fights. Don't start running off and trying to do your own 1v1 plays. Use your allies gold lead to your advantage. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my videos. It really means a lot to me. I check it all, and it's just been wonderful to have so much support from you guys and the rest of the community. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.